The snowstorm hit just as Noah Vandermeer's Bentley struggled up the last steep incline toward what his GPS claimed was a lodge, though from the outside. It looked more like someone's oversized cabin than the five-star accommodation his assistant had promised. Wind rocked the luxury sedan as fat snowflakes accumulated on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear them. He'd never make it back down the mountain tonight. Noah slammed his palm against the steering wheel. This detour to the middle of nowhere would cost him the Westfield merger. 3 years of careful planning and negotiations potentially ruined because his board insisted he take a mental health break before the final signing. His phone showed no service bars, exactly what he didn't need when he was supposed to be reviewing final contract details. The Bentley's tires spun against the snowy gravel as he pulled into what appeared to be a parking area. Only 2 other vehicles occupied the space: a mud-splattered Jeep and an ancient pickup truck with a snowplow attachment. Not promising. Grabbing his leather overnight bag and laptop case, Noah made a dash through the swirling snow toward the covered porch. The wind cut through his Italian wool coat like it was tissue paper, instantly numbing his exposed skin. He hadn't dressed for a blizzard in the mountains. His wardrobe was selected for boardrooms and executive dining, not wilderness survival. The heavy wooden door swung open before he could knock, releasing a blessed wave of warmth. "Get in here before you freeze." A woman's voice, low and melodic, called over the howl of the wind. "You must be my reservation." Noah stumbled into the welcoming heat of the lodge, stamping snow from his handmade leather shoes, which he now realized were entirely inappropriate for the environment. The door closed behind him with a solid thunk, instantly muffling the storm's fury. "I'm Zoe Winters. Welcome to Whispering Pines Lodge." The woman extending her hand wore a thick cable-knit sweater over jeans, her dark hair gathered in a messy bun. Her cheeks were flushed, perhaps from the fireplace crackling in the stone hearth across the rustic lobby. "You must be Mr. Vandermeer." Noah took her hand automatically, surprised by the firm grip and the calluses that spoke of physical work, something his own manicured hands hadn't experienced in decades. "Noah," he said, his businesslike demeanor faltering slightly under her direct gaze. Her eyes were a startling blue-green, like mountain lakes he'd seen from his private jet. "Well, Noah, you're lucky you made it up here before the worst hit. They're closing the mountain roads. You might be stuck with us for a few days." She didn't sound particularly concerned as she moved behind a simple wooden counter to retrieve what looked like an actual metal key. Not a key card, an actual key. Noah couldn't remember the last time he'd seen a hotel use physical keys. That's not acceptable. The words came out sharper than he'd intended. "I have a merger to finalize in 3 days." Zoe raised an eyebrow, seemingly unimpressed by his predicament. "And I have a mountain that doesn't care about mergers. Nature wins these arguments every time." She gestured toward a wall of windows where the blizzard raged outside. "The weather report says we're looking at 3 feet of snow by morning." Noah pulled out his phone, desperately searching for a signal. "I need to contact my office." Wi-Fi password is Mountain Peace, all lowercase, no spaces. Zoe slid the key across the counter. "You're in the Pine Suite, last door on the right upstairs. There's a satellite connection, but it gets spotty in storms. Dinner's at 7 in the main dining room." Noah grabbed the key, irritation building. "Is there anyone else staying here? I'll need quiet to work." "Just one other guest, an author who comes every winter to write. He keeps to himself." She gestured to a coffee station in the corner. "Help yourself, it's fresh." The lobby was nothing like the luxury hotels Noah frequented. Instead of marble and chandeliers, there were wooden beams, a stone fireplace, and comfortable-looking furniture arranged to take advantage of the mountain view, not that there was much to see through the whiteout conditions. Still, something about the space felt genuine, lived in, cared for. "I'll need reliable internet," he insisted, clinging to control of a situation rapidly slipping beyond his grasp. Zoe's expression softened slightly. "I'll do my best, but mountain weather makes no promises." "Your suite has the strongest signal in the lodge." Noah nodded curtly and headed toward the stairs, acutely aware of the sound his dress shoes made against the hardwood floors. He felt out of place in his tailored suit amid the rustic charm of the lodge. The Pine Suite was larger than he expected, a sitting area with a small desk facing windows that would probably showcase spectacular views when not obscured by snow. The bedroom featured a king-sized bed with what appeared to be a handmade quilt. No mini-bar, no room service menu, but there was a small kitchenette, and he was relieved to see a modern coffee maker. Noah set up his laptop and attempted to connect to the Wi-Fi. The signal was weak but present. He managed to send a brief email to his executive team before the connection faltered. With a frustrated sigh, he unpacked his single overnight bag all his assistant had insisted he'd need for one night away. Now he was potentially stranded for days with one change of clothes. At precisely 7, hunger drove Noah downstairs. The dining room was cozy with only 4 tables. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, its warmth permeating the space. The lone other guest, presumably the author, sat in a corner, absorbed in a notebook. Noah chose a table by the window, though there was nothing to see but darkness and swirling snow. "Hope you like beef stew," Zoe said, appearing beside his table with a steaming bowl and a plate of what looked like homemade bread. "It's what we've got tonight." "I usually prefer," Noah began, but the aroma rising from the bowl made his stomach growl audibly. Zoe smiled, a genuine expression that momentarily transformed her face. "Your stomach has good taste. Try it before you decide." Too hungry to argue, Noah took a spoonful. The flavor was rich and complex, nothing like what he'd expected from a rural mountain lodge. "This is exceptional." "Thanks, family recipe." She set down a glass of red wine he hadn't ordered. "On the house, you look like you need it." Noah wanted to be annoyed at the presumption, but found himself oddly touched by the gesture. "Thank you." Zoe lingered at his table. "So what kind of merger keeps a man working through a blizzard?" "My company, Vander Tech Industries, is acquiring Westfield Communications." Noah sipped the wine, surprised by its quality. "It's been in negotiation for 3 years. And the world will end if it doesn't happen this week." There was no mockery in her tone, just genuine curiosity. "It's complicated." Noah found himself explaining the strategic importance of the acquisition, the timing with market conditions, the competitors circling if he showed any weakness. She listened attentively, asking occasional questions that revealed she understood more about business than he'd initially assumed. "So you built this company yourself?" she asked after he'd finished explaining the merger's importance. "From nothing. Started in my garage coding security software. Now we employ over 10,000 people globally." Pride crept into his voice despite his attempt at modesty. "Impressive." Zoe refilled his wine glass. "Must not leave much time for anything else." "There is nothing else," Noah said simply. "The company is my life." Something flickered across Zoe's expressive face, not pity, which he would have resented, but something more complex. Understanding, perhaps, mixed with something he couldn't quite identify. "What about you?" Noah found himself asking, genuinely curious. "How does one end up running a lodge on a mountain? Inherited it from my grandfather 3 years ago." Zoe glanced around the room with obvious affection. "I was working in hotel management in Denver. Corporate job, good salary, terrible hours. When Grandpa died, everyone expected me to sell this place." "Why didn't you?" Zoe's gaze returned to him, those remarkable eyes reflecting the firelight. "I came up to get it ready for sale and never left. Turns out what I really wanted wasn't in a corner office in Denver." Noah found himself envying her certainty. "And you've never regretted it? Giving up your career?" "I didn't give up a career, I chose a different one." She smiled again, that transformative expression that seemed to illuminate her from within. "One where I actually sleep at night and remember what the sky looks like." The comment struck uncomfortably close to home. When had Noah last looked at the sky for any reason other than checking whether that might delay a flight? Their conversation was interrupted by Zoe's phone pinging. She checked it, her expression growing serious. "The roads officially closed, counties not even sending plows up until the storm passes." Noah felt a surge of panic. "When will that be?" Weather service says at least 2 days. Zoe's tone was apologetic but firm. I'm afraid you're stuck here, Noah. The next morning, Noah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, he was disoriented before remembering where he was. The blizzard had passed during the night, leaving behind a world transformed. Through the window, he could see an expanse of pristine white snow stretching toward mountains that stood sharp and clear against a brilliant blue sky. Grabbing his phone, he was dismayed to find still no cell service, though the Wi-Fi connection seemed stronger. He sent several urgent emails before dressing in yesterday's clothes and heading downstairs. The lobby was empty, but the scent of coffee led him to the dining room. Zoe stood at a window, gazing out at the snow-covered landscape, a steaming mug in her hands. She wore a different sweater today, this one a deep forest green that complemented her coloring. Morning, she said, turning as he entered. Coffee's hot. Breakfast is whatever you'd like. I can do eggs, pancakes, or there's granola and yogurt if you prefer. Just coffee for now, thanks. Noah helped himself from a carafe on a sideboard. Any update on the roads? They're working on the main highway first. Our access road is low priority, probably tomorrow at the earliest. She studied his face. You really don't do well with things you can't control, do you? The observation was too accurate to deny. Not particularly, he admitted. Well, since you're stuck here, you might as well enjoy it. Zoe set down her mug. Have you ever been snowshoeing? Noah almost laughed. No, and I don't have the appropriate clothes for winter activities. I keep extras for guests. Unprepared city folks are my specialty. There was a teasing light in her eyes that Noah found unexpectedly appealing. Unless you'd rather stare at your laptop all day, hoping for a stronger signal, put that way, the choice seemed obvious. 30 minutes later, Noah found himself outside, bundled in borrowed snow pants, boots, and a jacket that smelled faintly of pine. Snowshoes were strapped to his feet, awkward contraptions that Zoe assured him he'd get used to quickly. Small steps, she instructed, demonstrating the technique. Let the snowshoe do the work. Noah felt ridiculous and ungainly, nothing like the confident CEO who commanded boardrooms, but after a few minutes of practice, he began to get the hang of it. Zoe led him along a trail that wound through snow-laden pines, their branches heavy with white. This is my favorite spot, she said when they reached a clearing. Below them stretched a valley undeveloped and pristine in its winter coating. Mountains rose beyond, their peaks gleaming in the sunlight. The silence was profound, no traffic noise, no phones ringing, no keyboards clicking. It's remarkable, Noah admitted, finding himself genuinely moved by the vista. Worth being stranded for? Zoe asked, her cheeks pink from exertion and cold. Noah surprised himself by considering the question seriously. Perhaps. They continued their trek, Zoe pointing out animal tracks, deer, rabbit, fox, and naming various trees and landmarks. Noah found himself listening intently, fascinated by her knowledge and obvious love of this wilderness. How do you manage this place alone? He asked as they made their way back toward the lodge. I'm not completely alone. Marcus, you met him at dinner. The author helps with maintenance when he's here, and I have seasonal staff during busy periods. She navigated easily over a fallen log, but I like the quiet times too. Gives me space to think. Don't you get lonely? The question slipped out before Noah could consider its personal nature. Zoe glanced at him, thoughtful rather than offended. Sometimes, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I felt more isolated in a crowded city than I ever have here. Noah thought about his penthouse apartment, the endless meetings, the networking events where he made small talk with people whose names he rarely remembered. When had he last had a conversation that wasn't about business? Back at the lodge, Zoe made them hot chocolate, real hot chocolate, melted from actual chocolate, not powder from a packet. They sat before the fire, the warmth seeping into Noah's muscles, pleasantly tired from the unaccustomed exercise. So what would you normally be doing right now in your real life? Zoe asked, curling into an armchair across from him. Conference calls, email, preparing for the merger. Noah rotated his mug between his hands. My assistant would have scheduled every minute. Sounds exhausting. It's what building a company requires. Is it, though? Zoe's question was gentle but direct. Or is that just what you've told yourself to justify not having anything else? Noah bristled slightly. I have a responsibility to my shareholders, my employees. I'm not questioning your dedication, Zoe interrupted. I'm asking if it's really an either-or situation, success or a life. Before Noah could formulate a response, a loud banging came from somewhere in the back of the lodge. Zoe jumped up. That's the generator housing with the weight of the snow. She hurried toward the sound, Noah following instinctively. In a small outbuilding access through the kitchen, they found the problem. Snow had partially collapsed part of the roof, and the generator was making an ominous grinding sound. This is bad, Zoe said, examining the damage. If we lose power in these temperatures. What do you need? Noah asked, already removing his borrowed jacket, prepared to help. For the next 2 hours, they worked together to shore up the damaged roof and protect the vital generator. Noah found himself doing physical labor he hadn't attempted since college, lifting, carrying, holding support beams while Zoe secured them. Instead of feeling put upon, he experienced an odd satisfaction in the concrete task. You're stronger than you look, Zoe commented as they finally got the situation stabilized. Noah laughed, surprised by the sound. Contrary to appearances, I do actually use a gym. Though this was considerably more practical. Back inside, they washed up in the kitchen. Noah's hands were grimy, his borrowed clothes dusty from the repair work, but he felt strangely invigorated. Zoe moved around the kitchen with easy efficiency, pulling out ingredients for their lunch. I can help, Noah offered, surprising himself again. I'm not completely useless in a kitchen. Zoe raised her eyebrows skeptically. I lived alone all through college and my early startup days, he explained. I couldn't afford takeout every night. She handed him an onion and a knife. Prove it? Noah began chopping, aware of Zoe working beside him, the comfortable silence broken only by the sounds of their food preparation. It felt oddly domestic, this shared activity in the warm kitchen while snow continued to fall gently outside. Over lunch, a simple but delicious soup they'd made together, Noah found himself talking about the early days of his company, stories he rarely shared. The failures and near misses, the all-nighters coding, the first major client who took a chance on his small startup. You really love it, don't you? Zoe observed, not just the success but the work itself. I did. Noah paused, surprised by his use of past tense. I mean, I do, it's just different now, less creation, more management. Do you miss the hands-on part? Noah considered this. Sometimes. But building the company, seeing it grow, that's been its own kind of creation. And what happens after the merger? Zoe asked. What's next? The question caught Noah off guard. He'd been so focused on completing the acquisition that he hadn't thought much beyond it. Expansion into new markets. Perhaps some acquisitions in complementary sectors. Zoe nodded, but something in her expression suggested she'd heard the hollowness in his answer. Sounds like more of the same. That's business, Noah said, defensive again. You set goals, achieve them, set new ones. And when do you stop and enjoy what you've built? Noah had no ready answer for that. After lunch, Noah found the Wi-Fi working better and spent a couple of hours catching up on work emails. Yet he found his concentration wandering, his thoughts returning to Zoe and their conversations. From his makeshift workspace, he could hear her moving about the lodge, occasionally humming to herself. The sound was oddly comforting. Late in the afternoon, he ventured downstairs to find her in a small office off the lobby, surrounded by paperwork. Lodge administration. He asked, leaning against the doorframe. Zoe looked up, pushing a strand of hair from her face. Taxes, my least favorite part of being a business owner. I could take a look if you'd like. Noah stepped into the room. Tax strategy is part of what built Vander Tech. Zoe hesitated, then pushed the papers toward him. Be my guest. Soon they were deep in discussion about business deductions, depreciation schedules, and strategies to maximize the lodge's modest profits. Noah found himself energized by the puzzle of it, offering suggestions that could genuinely help her small business. You're good at this, Zoe said after an hour of working together. You've probably saved me thousands. It's what I do. Noah was surprised by how much he'd enjoyed the task. Your grandfather built a solid business here. The foundation is excellent, but you see room for improvement. It wasn't a question. Every business has optimization opportunities. Noah gestured to her paperwork. You're running this place on passion and instinct, which clearly works, but with some strategic adjustments, you could reduce your stress and increase profitability without changing what makes it special. Zoe studied him, her head tilted slightly. Funny, I was thinking something similar about you. About me? That with some strategic adjustments, you might reduce your stress and increase your enjoyment of life without sacrificing your success. Her smile took any potential sting from the words. Noah found himself laughing again, the sound becoming less unfamiliar. Touché. That evening, they cooked dinner together, an easy partnership developing in the kitchen. The author, Marcus, joined them, contributing a bottle of wine from his room's stash. The conversation flowed easily, spanning literature, business, mountain living, and global politics. Noah couldn't remember the last time he'd engaged in such wide-ranging discussion with no agenda, no networking purpose. After dinner, with Marcus returned to his writing, Noah and Zoe sat before the fire again. Outside, the snow had stopped and stars were visible through the windows, brilliant against the black sky. County says they'll have our road cleared by noon tomorrow, Zoe said, breaking a comfortable silence. You'll be able to get back to your merger. Noah felt an unexpected pang at the news. That's good, is it? Zoe's voice was soft, her face illuminated by the flickering firelight. Noah really looked at her. In just 2 days, this woman had challenged his thinking more than anyone had in years. There was a directness to her, an authenticity that cut through his corporate armor. I don't know, he admitted. I should be relieved. Instead, I feel. What? Regretful, I suppose, that it took a blizzard to make me stop long enough to. He gestured vaguely around them. To what? To breathe. Noah met her gaze. To remember there's a world outside board meetings and quarterly projections. Zoe's expression softened. The world will still be there after your merger. Will it? Noah leaned forward, suddenly earnest. That's just it. For years, I've been saying after this deal or after this quarter, always postponing living until some future milestone. What would you do differently? Zoe asked. If you weren't postponing living, the question hung between them, heavy with possibility. I don't know, Noah said honestly. That's the problem. I've been running so long, I'm not sure I remember what I'm running toward. Zoe reached across the space between their chairs, her hand covering his. Her touch was warm, solid, grounding. Maybe it's not about running toward something. Maybe it's about standing still long enough to see what's already around you. Noah turned his hand, their fingers intertwining. The simple human connection sent a current through him more powerful than closing any business deal. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Noah woke early, his mind unusually quiet. The decision he'd been contemplating through the night felt right in the clarity of morning. He dressed in his now rumpled suit and went downstairs. Zoe was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. She looked up as he entered, her smile tinged with something that might have been sadness. Road crew called. They'll be here by 11. Noah nodded. I've been thinking. Dangerous activity, Zoe teased, but her eyes were serious. I need to see this merger through, Noah said. It's important to a lot of people who depend on me. I understand. Zoe turned back to the stove, her shoulders stiff, but after that. Noah stepped closer. I've never taken a real vacation, not since founding the company. Zoe glanced at him, a question in her eyes. I was wondering if you might have a room available, say for 2 weeks, next month after the merger closes. The spatula in Zoe's hand stilled. 2 weeks is a long time for a CEO to be away. Yes, it is. Noah moved closer still, but I have excellent cell service at my office, I don't hear. Seems like a good place to practice being unavailable. Practice? A smile was beginning to form at the corners of Zoe's mouth. First step of many, I hope. Noah gently turned her to face him. I think I might need regular reminders about what matters beyond the next deal. If you're willing to provide them. Zoe's eyes searched his face. Are you sure? I'm not exactly part of your world. That's precisely why I need you in it. Noah took her hands in his. I've built an empire, but you've built a home. I think I have a lot to learn from you, Zoe Winters. And what do I get from this arrangement? Her tone was light, but her question serious. Tax advice for starters, Noah said, making her laugh. And maybe some perspective from someone who sees possibilities you might miss, a partnership of sorts. Business partners? Zoe raised an eyebrow. To begin with, Noah said softly, but I'm open to negotiation on the terms. Zoe stepped closer, eliminating the distance between them. I accept your initial offer, Mr. Vandermeyer, with the understanding that terms will be revisited regularly. Absolutely. Noah's hands moved to her waist. I believe in thorough due diligence. Their first kiss was gentle, a question and answer both, the beginning of a conversation Noah suddenly realized he wanted very much to continue. 6 months later, Noah's Range Rover purchased specifically for mountain driving crunched up the gravel drive of Whispering Pines Lodge. This time, no blizzard threatened, just the golden light of autumn illuminating the changing leaves. The Westfield merger had closed successfully 3 months ago. Noah had indeed taken his 2-week vacation at the lodge, during which his relationship with Zoe had deepened from tentative attraction to something neither of them could deny. Since then, he'd been splitting his time between his corporate headquarters in the city and the mountain lodge that increasingly felt like home. Today was special, though. Today, he wasn't arriving as a guest or even as Zoe's now established partner. Today, he was arriving as a co-owner. The papers transferring a 50% stake in Whispering Pines to him had been signed that morning, but the weight in his pocket wasn't the ownership documents. It was a small velvet box containing a ring of sapphire that matched Zoe's remarkable eyes, set in platinum with small diamonds surrounding it. He'd planned to wait, to make a romantic evening of it, but as Zoe came out onto the porch to greet him, her face lighting up at his arrival, Noah knew he wouldn't be able to wait. This woman who had shown him how to stop postponing life deserved his most immediate and heartfelt attention. You're early, she called, coming down the steps to meet him. Noah didn't answer with words. Instead, he dropped to one knee in the gravel driveway, the box already in his hand. Zoe's eyes widened, her hands flying to her mouth. I wasn't planning to do this here, Noah said, looking up at her. But I've learned from you that the right moment is now, not some perfect future scenario. Zoe Winters, you showed me what was missing in my supposedly successful life. You challenge me, ground me, and make me happier than I ever knew was possible. Will you marry me? Tears were streaming down Zoe's face as she nodded, pulling him to his feet. Yes, she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. As they kissed, Noah knew with absolute certainty that no business success would ever compare to this feeling. He had checked into a small mountain lodge during a snowstorm, never imagining that its owner would make him want to stay forever. Now, against all odds, forever was exactly what they were building together.